to show your king due respect. I shall not repeat myself, nor suffer fools.
Suffer these nuts.
I have
Hey there, guys. It's the Master of Disaster, your man, Comet Smasher, and today I am bringing you my review of the Awakened King DLC for Remnant 2. Now, this video took me quite some time to be able to make. I put a lot of effort into it, and I hope that you will enjoy this review as much as I did playing and recording the footage for it with my buddy here. So, let's get to it. Alright, so first things first, I realized going into this that I actually didn't end up doing a video review for Remnant 2's base game. So, to summarize, Remnant 2 is the sequel and continuation of the Remnant from the Ashes storyline. In the first game, you play as the Wanderer, a member of an unnamed tribe of survivors, searching for a warrior sent out by their tribe to find a way to destroy the Root, an interdimensional alien race with the power to proliferate a nearly infinite number of times, and in nearly all climates, and whose existence threatens to literally choke the life out of existence itself. The Wanderer travels through giant red teleporter crystals to other worlds to kill the Root presence in those worlds. In Remnant 2, you play a presumably unrelated character called the Traveler, who is called upon by circumstance to finish the job that the Wanderer started. Now, in both games, the gameplay is very much Dark Souls with guns, but the difference is in how spells and abilities are handled. In the first Remnant, your only abilities were tied directly to weapon attachments, called mods, and the gameplay was good, but not nearly as refined as Remnant 2. In Remnant 2, abilities are separate from mods now, and they're tied to the character archetype or class that you're using, allowing for much more versatility in playstyles. From my perspective, it actually almost felt like the first Remnant was more or less a full-length beta test for what would become Remnant 2, and they just separated it into two games. And now we move on to the DLC itself. The Awakened King DLC is a continuation and climax to the story of just one of the many worlds you can traverse in Remnant through the red crystals. This world is called Losum. Losum is a world torn between two alternate realities that overlap. One is the realm of the Fae, who are a race of chaotic, goal-oriented, and violently competitive beings that thirst for power and knowledge. The other is the realm of the Dran, a race of humanoids very similar in appearance to Dark Elves, who seem to have advanced their society to a level roughly similar to that of mid-18th century England. In the base game, the two realities of Losum are merged when malefactors on the Fae side conspire to murder the one true king, one of two beings that preside over existence itself on Losum, to prolong the lifespan of their race and cure a horrible affliction that all Fae are born with. The merging of the two realms causes the Dran to go mad, as they're exposed to the malevolence of the Fae and begin seeing them in horrifying hallucinations, and the populace begin killing one another, until the medical administration of Losum begin rounding up the mad and institutionalizing them to try and stem the chaos. The Awakened King DLC takes place, I believe, and this is just my opinion, after the closest possible canon ending to the Losum story, where the Traveler kills a powerful Fey witch named the Nightweaver, who has the power to manipulate people through nightmares and slowly devour their souls. After defeating the Nightweaver, her power of sleep over Losum is released, and in theory, the same power which may have been infused into the magic dagger used on the one true king fades, and allows him to enact his tyranny upon Losum. Now, I say may in the case of the dagger simply because of the fact that the Nightweaver's influence on the overarching story of Losum is not exactly entirely clear, and her involvement with the One True King is unknown. The dagger itself was, if I remember correctly, enchanted by Namue, the other godly being in precedence over Losum. And part of the reason why I say that I believe this is the closest to possible canon endings for the Losum story is the final boss in the Awakened King DLC happens to have a cutscene which suggests that the other playthrough, where you interact with the imposter princes, may not in fact have happened at all. But again, this is purely speculation. Now, the next thing that I want to talk about is the overall atmosphere. One of the things to note about the TLC is the atmosphere. Compared to the dreary and run-down atmosphere of Losum, that suggests a quiet air of fear and madness, the Forlorn Coast has an atmosphere of tension, foreboding, and malice. The skies are no longer empty, but filled with the roiling storm clouds, lightning flashes, and the sea's rage. The constant falling rain is like a never ending cymbal crescendo, foretelling an inevitable end to come. The castle of the one true king sits in the background, and is almost always in sight, towering over the humble landscape of Dran architecture, like a giant beast awaiting its feast. And what few denizens of Losum that haven't become completely hostile have now turned from fear to despair, lamenting the revelations before their very eyes, and wallowing in self-pity and nihilism, just wishing for it all to end.
This can't be it. Can it? This is what it means. All it means to know. He tore away the veil. Now we know. We know what we couldn't possibly know. I know me now. And to know is to know. And once you know, you can't never not know. Oh, my head is full of things. Things and things. I wish it wasn't. It's too much. Too much and so much that I don't want any. I'd rather be empty.
Now, there isn't much to say as far as differences in most of the enemy design in Losum. A majority of the enemies in the DLC are exactly the same, though a few new ones have been added in. What really changes in the DLC, though, is the difficulty. The enemy scaling seems to be significantly higher than the game suggests it is, with enemies being significantly more powerful overall than you might expect, and leading to more than a few instances where you have to rethink the strategy that you used in the base game to get around those snags. The difficulty may also be affected by some, not all, of the enemies receiving tweaked AI to make them work better as a team compared to their base game counterparts, as well as much more powerful ranged units thrown into the mix. Top that with elite or mini-boss enemies now frequently appearing in groups of 2 or more, even on veteran difficulty, and you have a much different gameplay experience than the base Losum. As is par for the course for Remnant 2's map design, The Forlorn Coast is just as much a contrived mess of ladders, dead ends, and convoluted, twisting roads as Base Losum was. You'll have to consult the map a lot to get around compared to some other worlds, as it's not always clear where and how you might be able to get to an obvious door just by sight alone, and many secret paths aren't on the map. Although, one might expect that to be a given, since they're supposed to be a secret. The Forlorn Coast has a lot of loot, and while it doesn't quite have as many weapons and armor sets as I was hoping for, there's a good number of gear and rings that have to be accessed with very clever map use, and in some cases, inventory management. There's actually at least one key item related to a specific part of the area that can be used on two separate doors, but only if you know it's secret. And the integration of item inspection and puzzle solving in Remnant 2 is taken to its highest level of intricacy in the Awakened King DLC. And in one case, a single item in NPC questline spans the length of the entire DLC. Now, as I stated before, the DLC didn't add too much to the roster of Losum's enemies, but worthy of note are a new body type and size for the giant axe guys. These bullshit riflemen that can one-shot almost anyone at close range. Zuli the Witch, after an Elden Ring bender. And... yeah, these guys. Holy shit, we need to talk about these. I have no idea what they're called in-game, but veteran Destiny 2 players should know exactly what they are. That's right, Screebs. The annoying, fast-crawling, psychotic suicide bombers of the Scorn. And these guys? They're just as annoying and just as dangerous. While normal Screebs, yes, I'm calling them that now, don't at me, Bungie, in Destiny 2 don't have ranged attacks. These guys do, and they can debuff with poison and whatever that purple stuff does, at range by tossing globes of cancer at you. And when you kill a Screeb, dodge roll fast, because they explode upon death. Just one of these things is smart and fast enough to wear down a player that they've ambushed, but they normally fight in groups, and the last thing you want to do is try to take them all out at once in close quarters. If you encounter Screebs in a group, reposition and funnel as close as you can at range, and try to use AoE mods and skills, because most self-buffs won't make your weapons damage them fast enough. So I also mentioned before that the Awakened King DLC is meant to be a climax to the Losum storyline, and it is. But that doesn't mean that we've seen and read everything. Throughout the DLC, just like in the base game, there are readable lore books that you can find that contain the story of the reactions of the Dran to the king's arrival, and even some that contain further backstory on the Fae and their place in this reality, as well as the possible future that may come to be with the king's awakening. If you're interested in the story beyond just what you can see in combat, or obviously out in the open while walking around, trying to find the lore books hidden around the map will be worth the effort for the experience. And if you're not the reading type, well, nah, who cares? Books are for wise men with skinny arms anyway, am I right? To sum all of this up, the Awakened King DLC for Remnant 2 is an absolute blast. Despite a surprising difficulty spike and some tricky navigation issues, it never stopped being fun. And I absolutely recommend getting it if you haven't already. Anyway, that's all I have to say on this video. If you liked what you saw, a thumbs up would be much appreciated, and if you want, leave a comment down below to help the algorithm. And smash that subscribe button if you want to stay up to date whenever I put out a new video, live stream, or short. And if you want, the link to my Twitter account is in the description, so you can catch me over there when I've got any news or other stuff for you. On a side note, if any of you guys catch anything I was wrong about, please also leave that in the comments below as well. And I'll pin the comments so any future viewers will be able to see the correction and have more accurate info. This has been Comet Smasher telling you to shoot for the stars.
Fuck you. That was bullshit.